Hey, welcome everybody to episode 2 of the Think Like a Marketer show. We've got an exciting show today. I brought in a buddy of mine, Matt Blankenship Jr. He's going to talk about a lot of things.
Yeah.
And we've talked about a lot of different things, but really want to dial it into, first off, 8-time Ironman finisher. I went through a lot of strife and you name it, difficulties in your life. And we're going to talk about a couple of those. But before we do, I want to say thanks to our sponsor at Spoken About, where they take people from Facebook to appointment book. So I want to jump in and introduce the audience to you right now.
Okay.
This is Mack Blankenship, 8-time Ironman finisher. So when I posted this and like, Ironman, you're going to have Ironman on your show? They thought like the Ironman. I'm like, hey, I wish I could get the Ironman on here. Hey,
that'd be kind of a cool gig there, right? Yeah.
So I want to open up the floor and just a brief history of like what led you to what led you to do 8, not just 1, but 8.
You know, and let me be clear. I've eight Ironmans. I had 7 finishes, and so for all my friends out there that are Ironmans, that were we sometimes you have a bad day, and one day I had a bad day and struggled with heat exhaustion. You know, it could be really hot in May.
Yeah.
So I'm 7-time finisher, and I just did Ironman Texas 2 weeks ago.
In the Woodlands.
In the Woodlands, yes.
They really loved you guys out there when they shut down the Woodlands. Those people go nuts.
Yeah, you know, and it's really a challenge, I think, for the local community, but it's just a fantastic race and a fantastic venue.
Yeah.
But you know, I didn't want to be an Ironman. I didn't.
You didn't?
Oh no. I did it to because I was in love with my wife, right?
Right.
My wife is a competitor, and but what's really interesting is that
so you didn't start off Ironman.
Oh no. So in the way that it goes is really I started off doing marathon.
Okay.
Doing the Houston Marathon, and in 2009, my then 12-year-old daughter looked at me and said, "I want to run a marathon with my grandma."
You said that to you?
She said that to me.
Oh wow!
I said, "Go talk to Mom."
You're running these by now.
Go talk to Mom. No, I'm not.
Oh no, I'm not
at all. This is like 2009. I'd run one marathon and swore I would never do it again.
And I know why.
So my 12-year-old talks her mother into signing the whole family up for the 2010 Houston Chevron Marathon.
The whole family.
Everyone
ran it.
Grandma, 12-year-old.
How old was your grandma?
She was 63 at the time.
Oh, okay, that's not a grandma.
Yeah, 63.
But
see, here's
woman.
Here's the deal though. Grandma was one of the first women to ever do an Ironman in the year 2000 in Sugar Land, Texas.
Wow. Did you inspire her, or did she inspire you?
Actually, she inspired our daughter.
Oh wow. Is your daughter going to do one, or has she done one?
She's that I don't know, but she has run the Houston Chevron Marathon since she was 12 every year.
Wow.
And
that's a lot on the body.
That's a lot on the body, right? Especially for 12 years old.
Mm-hmm.
But so we all signed up, and ABC 13 calls, and they said, "Hey, you know, you have the youngest female running this year's Houston Chevron Marathon. We'd love to come out and interview the family."
Oh wow!
And so she became a featured runner for that year, and my wife also signed us up for a running group, which just didn't make sense to me. And you know, $125 per person to go run with a group, and you could just do it for free. It's just, you know, I'm a mortgage banker, right?
Right.
You know, and that just didn't make sense to me. But you know what happened, Randall, is we started running with our group, and we fell in love with the people we were hanging out with.
Right.
And I think that that's more than anything is what's inspired me to do 8 Ironmans is I fell in love with the people that I got the opportunity to hang out with, and I got to hang out with incredible people every weekend, right?
Well, I think you know, first off, I don't want to sound like, but you have to have a little bit of a crazy gene somewhere in there, or some. I say crazy because that sounds so negative, but it's not. I think it's a fun thing because growing up in my house, we had a sign in our house that said you don't have to be crazy to live here, but if you are, it helps.
Yeah.
I grew up with 2 younger sisters, and we had a blast. And even in my business today, I say the same thing. Like, you don't have to be crazy to work here. We'll train you.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but because we talked about this, is like, let's go a little bit further back, and you're like, what is somebody thinking? Like, I'm just gonna run. You don't just wake up one morning and say, I'm going to run first off a marathon, let alone give them little stats on what an Ironman is, because most people don't know. Like, what is it? Like,
yeah, it's a
running,
triathlon. It's a triathlon. It's 2.4 mile swim.
Easy, done.
That's the easy part, right?
That is that's the first part.
And that's as good as you're going to feel all day. I promise you, it's as good as
cool.
It's yeah.
Hey, but I did hear that's the part where you almost feel like people are going to drown you.
Yes, and historically we've done mass starts at Ironman. Now we do staggered starts based upon timing.
Because of that,
absolutely. There was a time where I stood up on the shore at Lake Woodlands, thinking I was just about to drown, and questioned my own sanity at that particular time with the mass start. But what you do is you deal with it, you get back in the water and you start swimming. But 2.4 mile swim is probably the easiest part of the day. And then it gets progressively worse. Because and then in biking 112 miles, it may not seem like fun for a lot of folks, but at this stage, that's fun, especially if you get a good tailwind. How far is Austin
from here?
That I don't know. It's probably almost, 160.
Yeah, it's pretty close to it. So almost biking to Austin, swimming 2 miles, and then taking a stroll to Austin.
But then when you get ready to do the run, 26.2 miles after biking 112. Then you really begin to question your sanity, and you question how you're going to get through it. But if you trained, right? If you trained and you did the work, you did the grind, and you trust your training, and you trust the strategy that in my instance that me and my coach have developed for the race, then you just go out and do it, and the pain's going to come, because it's going to come, and it's going to be excruciating. And what I do is I just try to negotiate how long I can deal with it.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you come in, because the show is about entrepreneurs, marketers, and innovators, and kind of picking their brain and finding out like what makes them tick. And part of being an entrepreneur is getting past that pain. It may feel it's no different than physical pain, that mental pain that you go through.
It is.
And how do you overcome that pain, especially when you're running, you're actually physically dealing with it? How do you convince yourself to keep on going? Same thing in entrepreneurship. How do you convince yourself to keep on going, even when your body and everything else is saying, we're about to shut down this show right about now?
Yeah. For me, it's I just take little chunks, right?
Yeah.
1 mile, and just go, that's the way the race is set up is you have an aid station every mile. And so you just get to the next aid station, and you get to the next aid station. You take care of the body. Ice is a great anesthetic, right?
Yeah.
Great anesthetic. So you take care of the body, and you just run to the next one.
And it's so true about entrepreneurship.
I got to believe
just do that.
To be true. Yeah.
Just get through this day.
Yeah.
Don't try to think about what's going to happen, 6 months from now, because you can't affect it.
Yeah.
Tell the old Eckhart Tolle, psychological time and clock time. Like you can't. You're only living the present.
That's right.
And that's kind of what, when you're running this, is like, I'm just going to deal with it each mile. Like, okay, I made that one. Now let's get behind it.
And Randall, I believe that's the beauty behind that kind of event, because you're just so in the moment, and you stay there. You just kind of stay there because you're just so focused at that particular time, just getting through that next mile, or that next step, or just persevering, I guess. Yeah. It's just a matter of perseverance. It really is.
It's what's interesting about it to me is it's the same in business and entrepreneurship. It's like, I think we all go, I think I could do that. Some people may think they can do that until you actually start doing it. Like, I could for sure do the 2 mile swim. Do I get floaties? Easy.
No floaties.
No floaties. Okay.
But if it's wetsuit legal, though, it's almost like having a floaty, right? So if it's wetsuit legal, there's a lot of
whatever it takes, right?
Yes, whatever it takes.
But translating those, each mile, because you got 2 miles you got to swim, and like, okay, I'm done with that. And in entrepreneurship, it's like when you go in it, you're so excited about it. You have all that energy. And I'm sure in the same when you race, the night before, your anticipation, your adrenaline's pumping. In that first segment that's so easy, you're like, oh, wow, this is not bad. And then real world sets in.
Sun comes out, right?
Same thing in entrepreneurship. Hey, I wanted to say thanks for Joe. We're going to get to some questions on here, Freddie. Tony, thanks for coming on. And if you have any questions for Mac, whether it's related to what he does for a living, which we'll get to,
Yep.
or some tips on what the mental strategy that is applied in running one of those, and then how it translates, because you had a background that's fairly interesting that kind of helped you out.
Yeah,
you had to go through a lot of things when you were younger.
Yeah,
leading up to
and
running.
Yeah, I think, and what's interesting about that subject is, it wasn't something that I had really discussed with myself here,
right?
Probably for the last 30 years. It's that, Hurricane Harvey, because I was reinventing myself as far as my career. I've been a mortgage banker for 25 years, and had an enormously tragic event happen.
Right. You can share it with them.
February 20th, my wife was run over by a drunk driver, and she was with her best friend. She was at corner Harlem and 90. Life flighted to Memorial Hermann, and for all intents and purposes, she died that day. And but thankfully, she went to Memorial Hermann Trauma and Medical Center, because had she gone to any other hospital, Randall, she'd have been DOA'd, because if your heart stops and it's due to internal bleeding, there's no hope. It's over.
Right.
It's just over. And but the physicians in the ER there, her nickname, and when they pick you up on Life Flight, they don't bother to check your ID. They give you an alias, and her alias that day was Quebec. And
oh wow.
And when Quebec's heart stopped, as the physicians in ICU told the story to me, is that Dr. Michelle McNutt said, "Let's open her chest," because that's all they can do is they open your chest and literally crack the rib cage and try to figure out what organ had bled to death. And in her instance, it was the liver.
Oh wow.
They packed her liver, gave her blood transfusion, and miraculously she came back to life.
Wow.
And they didn't expect that.
Wow. Yeah.
I had more than one physician tell me they'd never seen anybody survive that surgery.
I could still see that it affects you, and even now telling the story, you can't, people can't be here and probably see that and feel it.
And so we spent the next 7 months in the hospital.
Wow.
The level of injury was just massive. But what made it even worse is that she didn't know why she was there for the longest time, because the driver hit her from behind at like 50 miles an hour.
Oh my God.
Immediate traumatic shock. She was training. Yes,
wow.
On a bike. And
by this time, you had already ran?
We'd already done 5 Ironman Texases together.
Wow.
We were the only couple to, it's 3-peat. I don't know what happens after 3-peat. Was it? 4-peat, 5-peat?
Then
right?
You're in the Michael Jordan category.
Exactly. So,
that's, moving and thinking about, your loved one and having to go through that you had a successful business. And you had to decide, like, I got to shut it down and take care of the person that I love.
Yeah.
And, that takes a lot to do. It doesn't take a lot to decide to do it, but it takes a lot out of you to do it. We see somebody suffering and all you can do is just be there, because you can't fix hearts or livers. You could just be a support.
That's all I could do.
And that's got to be difficult.
But it was really easy.
Yeah.
It was really easy. When I say the decision was easy to let go of business, to find that single-mindedness of purpose, just to be there for that other person, was just, for me in my life in that time frame, was spiritually moving.
Wow.
Unlike probably any other time in my life. And I think I shared with you yesterday that I read 2 really good books during that. And I read Man's Search for Meaning.
Oh yeah.
Viktor
Good
Frankl.
One. Yeah.
Yeah. I read that one.
I think that's a recommended read.
I think it is. And the other was, Why Bad Things Happen to Good People. And it really kind of helped me put into perspective that, it's not my fault. It's not her fault, and, really all we can do at this moment is to try to find some good in it all to share with other people,
Right.
and or inspire other people.
I don't know who said it, but they said, hey, you're going through your life. For Andy Andrews, he wrote the Traveler's Gift, wrote a bunch of books, but that's a recommended reading. He talked about our life is just a series of, you're either in a crisis, headed to a crisis, or coming out of a crisis.
Yeah.
And we always wish for not having problems, right? When we should be wishing for strength to get through problems, because no one gets out of this world without that same
That's right.
in and out, in one, out
Yeah.
one, headed to another one. And training for, mentally, whether it's through marathons or through triathlons or just doing things in life, and not sitting in a corner and thinking life's not going to come after me because I'm staying home. When people get depressed, they sleep a lot.
They sleep a lot
because the body
Yes.
convinces them, if we stay asleep and you don't go out in that world, you won't get hurt.
Yes. Yes.
And in essence, they're hurt. Because eventually they got to get out of that bed, and anything that throws them off is going to affect them a lot worse than somebody who's mentally prepared. I mean, I think, whether you know it or not, the universe or whoever you believe in was preparing you for that moment that was going to happen. And the average person probably would have fell apart. They wouldn't known what to do.
Oh, I fell apart more than once.
Oh, you did? I'm sure you did.
Yeah.
But you made it. And
but
it
was on the back porch by myself, and I would fall apart on a regular basis.
Yeah, I mean, like fall apart.
But during the day,
the
primary focus was just to be there.
Yeah.
For my wife at that particular time, and it was ongoing for like a year and a half, and it was easy to give up work at that point. It was just easy,
So by this time, you're at a year and a half later.
Year and a half later.
So she is okay.
She's okay. She's alive. We had to amputate the left leg.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
She did the Houston Marathon in a hand cycle.
Right.
Yeah. So she endeavors to compete again, and I believe she will.
Right.
I believe she will. She's strongest person I've ever met. Physically strongest person I've ever met.
Well, I mean, it sounds like. I
did Ironman just to be around her, right? Because that's why I signed up. It wasn't my idea. It was her idea.
Signed up just to be.
Just like the first marathon wasn't my idea. It was a 12-year-old.
So I think they're wondering, and I'm wondering, if you ran it, did you ran it together, one or five of them?
We did 6 together. We only finished one together.
And what were the times?
Oh, well, the times vary. Like my wife is very competitive, and her last one was like 11:43, which I'd never even come close to that. So I had to live with that for a long time.
You did?
Yeah. But my best Ironman Texas time was actually this last year, was 12:20.
Wow.
But prior to that, I'd done 12:45. I did 11:58, and I raced with my best friend in Florida in November 2017. I did 11:58, which I was pretty proud of that.
Wow. I don't think most people can do something for 12 hours, let alone paying for 12 hours, which continues on after.
Yeah. There's some fantastic athletes that come out from all over the world to compete. And there's guys out there that are doing just amazing physical things in Ironman. I think my aspirations are more community and relationship driven.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
and to be 50 years old and say, hey, I can do an Ironman.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool, right?
That is pretty cool.
For me, that's pretty cool gig.
Yeah. I think it's inspiration for us. Some people, and this kind of the theme of this particular show is reinventing yourself, that I think a lot of people, in different flavors of this, right? Yep. They go to high school, they get great grades, they go to college, they know they're ambitious, they get a great job, they go to corporate America, and they stick in that, and they get a retirement, and then it's all over, and they're done, and they go out in the sunset, and it's just not like that.
I don't think.
I mean, because we're living so long that if you retire at 55, 58 or whatever that is, I don't know, and they're like, well, what do I do now? Fish? Yeah, I do all that. Man, nothing wrong with that, and there are people that do that, but there's people who at that age.
Do Ironman.
Do Ironman. Yeah. I mean, you think about the world's most interesting man. What is his name? I can't remember off the top of my head, but he's out in Italy.
Yeah.
And Gianluigi something. I can't remember his last name. He's like 50 something years old. And he said, hey, I had a successful life as an entrepreneur. And most people don't even have a first life that's successful. And then I now am building this new life. He has 11 million like Instagram followers.
That's amazing.
And he built a whole new life at 50 plus.
50, yes. And so, yeah, I like that because I'm reinventing myself. I'm reinventing myself in that.
Well, you had this
professionally. And
what year was this? So we can set some context.
2016.
So 2016, you left the mortgage industry, and there was that time frame.
I'd leave the mortgage industry. I just didn't work on a daily basis. I just couldn't work on it the way that I had in the past. And
so Facebook, you're talking about Facebook, and then we're really starting.
Facebook was for my teenage daughter, right?
Well, the whole information,
but obviously that's changed now. That's changed, right? Because my business was built and driven off of email marketing, and and relationships with real estate agents. But when I went back to work, the people weren't reading emails anymore, Randall.
Yeah,
and I had a base of real estate agents, but even that, the attention had changed so dramatically for the consumer that because the consumer historically in my business went to the real estate agent and said, hey, can you find me a house? Can you find me a lender? Can you find me an inspector? And they really drove the business. And I think that technology has changed that to a great deal now that you have Zillow and you have Redfin. And so,
it's just, what makes it such a challenge for, in any industry, it's just not the mortgage, real estate, any industry is it's noisy. It's noisy because everyone now has almost the same exact access to delivery mechanisms that people didn't have years ago.
Yes.
I mean, you thought about if you wanted to produce, let's say you wanted to produce a commercial, right? And you wanted to run a commercial, you would have to get the money, hire the actors, write the script, get all of that, and then go to the production company, and maybe you hired them to do it. But if you did it at your office, which, one of the funny ones that I remember as a kid was if your transmission's got you down or your motor falls apart, you remember this one?
Yes.
The Thunderbolt. And it was the girl, we put the yeehaw back in your motor engine.
Yes, I remember that one.
Used to come on during the wrestling.
Yeah.
For people who are in Houston, I know people listen to it all over, but that was a great commercial, and it was self-produced.
Yeah. But
they still had to go to the network, buy time slots. They always bought the later ones, as I'm sure, because it was cheaper.
Sure.
And then, go to radio stations, and they would be their delivery mechanisms. Very, very expensive, and only people that had the budget to do that could use it. But now, like we're doing now,
it's completely
we can produce our own show live, have an audience, and as long as it's interesting enough, we can get an audience to come on, and we don't have to pay anybody.
Exactly.
Facebook is free. We have to buy a little bit of equipment, but outside of that, so when something is that easy,
we definitely live in the best.
Oh, we're totally spoiled.
Totally.
When something that easy, that means a lot of people can do it. So then, whatever that is, it gets noisy.
Yeah.
Then
I see your point.
It's still email marketing still does work if it's done properly.
Okay.
Meaning getting the right people in your funnel and being able to segment them out and talk about and give them things of value that they find valuable. They will open the email because they do.
Yeah.
If it's valuable. If you told them, hey, if you open my email, you get $20. Every email that you send to them, they will open it.
Exactly.
As long as you give them $20. Exactly. But it's the value. There's so much noise that they can't decipher what's going to be valuable for them. So it means that someone has to get the person who's better at delivering their message to the right people with the solution and giving. I mean, that's what this show's about. Yeah. This show's about giving before you ask for anything.
Exactly.
And so you're coming out. So I'll go back, take this all the way back to you. You're coming out of what used to work. You're like, okay, I'm going to get back on this horse, and all of a sudden you're on a pony.
Yeah,
and you weren't on a thoroughbred any longer. Because I see you now, because that's kind of how we met. You're like, I need to jump on this other bandwagon. That one I mastered, and it's not working like it used to. And you're having to reinvent yourself, and that's tough.
Yes. So somebody, first of all, I would say that I had a friend of mine from the gym that mentored me early on and really convinced me that the internet is the place to be for your business.
Yeah.
And he did. And he mentored me on developing my own video blog. He mentored me on developing search engine optimization. And you know what? I'm just a practitioner at it. I'm certainly not a professional.
Right.
But then I began to realize that, then somebody introduced me to Gary Vee. And I started listening to Gary Vee, and I'm like, gosh, Facebook isn't just for, teenagers. It isn't just for, social media interaction. It is an actual platform that you can build a large business. And then that developed into me meeting you, into me meeting Freddie, and then I began to realize that not only would this be valuable to me, but it would be valuable with some real tangible benefits to the people I want to serve, and that's the real estate community. And that's kind of, how I want to reinvent myself as an industry category, is to say, hey, I'm the go-to guy if you want to, if you need maybe some advice on how to develop a Facebook page, how to advertise it, and if anything, if I can't give you the advice, then I can introduce you to people that can help you build a business on that platform. And that's, how I've decided I want to build my business for the second time.
It's so crazy how, and I mean, if you think about how old and how long, I say old, but how long YouTube has been around. Netflix was actually around before YouTube. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
Like 1998.
No kidding.
Yeah.
No kidding.
So you think about Google, and it's like, but they're young compared to television and radio. You take all the way back to we're talking over 100 years old.
Yeah, long time.
100 years. But what you had seen is, if you go all the way back, the printing press, right? The printing press came along, and they kind of didn't know what to do with it, and they figured it out. And then it became this big thing. Marketers screw up everything. That's what
I've heard that.
Because whatever starts working, everybody starts doing it, and then that stops working, and people's attention moves somewhere else.
Yes.
The smart person is always looking ahead and trying to get the arbitrage for the attention there, not where everybody else is, because it's super noisy.
Yeah.
And then radio comes along, and they didn't know what to do with that, so they just tried to stick, theater in the radio, and that's where they have shows like Lum and Abner and all these, and they would just have shows that they were recorded on, and kind of like podcasts are today.
Sure.
And they didn't even have any commercials early on.
Really?
It was like, well, how are they monetizing this? They figured it out, right? So then so then television comes along, and what did they try to do with television?
Make it into radio with pictures.
They put like these variety shows like Desi Arnaz, and he's playing in the symphony, and he's talking to Mike in the show, and they had to they figured it out. Well, fast forward to YouTube and all what we have now, and it's the same thing. People are trying to shove in, for example, doing a show, right? And then they stick in a commercial inside of here, and they expect that somebody's going to watch that. And you don't stick television into this. It doesn't. It's called interruptive. No one comes to social media to be interruptive.
Yeah.
And then they say it does not work because they're doing it wrong. That's why it doesn't work. And it goes back to what you're saying is, when you come back in it, you're like, well, what I used to do doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
And I know sticking what used to work into the new technology doesn't work. And you want to take it from there with some of the things that you're doing now, because you're doing some good stuff, but you have to be patient.
Yeah. I'm doing some Facebook Live, and I'm doing some video blogs. And my video blog is teammortgagemack.com. And I'm doing my own productions, and just from budgetary standpoint, requires that I do that now. But I'm getting attention.
Yep.
I'm getting attention, and I'm getting attention in social media, all those platforms. And you saw the ad that I just produced. You saw it today, right? They got rejected by Facebook 4 times yesterday, and I did
your hair wrong.
Probably so. So I produced that ad sitting at the kitchen table with a green screen behind me.
Yeah. Good.
So whatever works, and and I'm willing at this stage of the game at 50 years old. You don't at 50, after being married for forever and having kids and everything, you don't get offended anymore.
Right.
It's just, hey, we're just going to go out and make mistakes until we get it right. And that's really what I'm doing. And I've had some really good mentors. As I mentioned, I have a mentor in Sugar Land named Mark, and you and Freddie, which I'm very grateful for.
Well, I know we're coming to the closing, so I have some closing stuff that I wanted to let you say. Go ahead.
Yeah,
You have
yeah,
something to add?
and I will tell you that we talked, and I know you'd mentioned in here that that about my childhood, and
Yeah.
what's interesting is I didn't this was not at the forefront of my thinking, and it hasn't been probably for 30 years, but after all the things that had happened, I stopped and said, I was feeling depressed, and in that depressive state, I went and got some counseling. And one of the interesting things that a counselor suggested that I do is sit down and write down your life story.
Wow, that's hard for some people. You have to relive things.
I had to relive that, and I began to recognize things that had happened, especially in my childhood, that were just completely beyond my fault, right? And because what do? We have a tendency to blame ourselves, right? For the bad things that happen to us in life, and I would tell you, it was very liberating to do that, to go through my own life's history and look at take responsibility for my faults, right? But not take responsibility for the things that I went through since the time that I was born till I was in got married the first time at 19,
right?
Because it just was but I would just tell you that there was it included a great deal of both physical abuse and and I've never admitted this to any other person other than my wife and counselor, and at some point it was sexual abuse and that was really hard to say. Yeah. I couldn't get that out, right? So and maybe if I don't do anything, then maybe I might inspire somebody that maybe go sit down and write down your life story.
I think that's a good closing statement to say.
And maybe that life story, if you begin to tell it, maybe it'll inspire somebody else to go out and endeavor to make a difference in not only their lives but other people's lives, because I believe I am my brother's keeper, and I just believe that.
Well, I think when we talked about before the show today, and we were talking about like what leads somebody to, wherever they go in life, it starts, whether we like to believe it or not, things that happen to us. Richard Branson talks about this in his book, it had it not been for him having dyslexia, he wouldn't have worked twice as hard as everyone else. And it was him working twice as hard as everyone else and trying to figure out how to get something done that seemed easy for other people.
Yeah.
Conditioned him for things later in life that were going to happen. And I think in closing, that's exactly what happened to you. All of those things that happen to you, whether they're good, bad, or ugly, people go through them, conditions you for things that haven't even came to you yet. That's going to be really, really good, that you're going to need to have, because a lot of people don't know, the big, small road, more money, more problems. That is 100% true.
Yeah.
People think, you get a lot of money, all your problems are solved. No, they're just bigger numbers behind them. There's bigger people who come after you for it. There's bigger, all of those things. And if people want to be blessed or earn those, they have to go through the battles to get there. And I think that's, if we had to close on anything, that you have fought many battles as a kid. And then as an adult. And as an adult. And I'm certain if you live longer, you're going to go through some other battles, just like all of us. Yeah. I recently went through one with, losing my mom to cancer and my sister and my family. And we had to basically just watch 8 months of my mom. And if anyone out there has had to go through that, you know how taxing that is on you, that you can do nothing about it.
You can do nothing about it. And I love the empathy, because you just never know what another person has been through and what's put them to where they're at today. I had a gentleman I told my story to a gentleman, and he sat me down and told me his story, and it was just heartbreaking. And
right.
And I asked him, I said, do you ever get over it? And he said, no, you don't get over it. You just get busy and living life.
Man, I appreciate you coming in and sharing. I know there's some of this stuff you probably hadn't shared publicly, and I appreciate that you trusted me enough to come in here and share it.
Yeah. It was really difficult, and I had great deals of anxieties about it. But if anything, maybe it'll help someone else. But it was immensely liberating to do that, and there's, I think, a great deal of freedom in it.
I think so. And so if someone wanted to contact you, so we didn't talk a lot about your business for good reason, because I think people do business with people that they like, know, and trust. And whatever it is, if they like you, whatever it is that you do, if they ever need that business or whatever, that service, you'll be the first person they're going to, because they have to feel like you care about them more than you care about yourself.
That's right. That's empathy again.
Yeah.
Right?
Again. And
Yeah.
I think you've expressed that anybody leaving everything behind for that is masterful.
Yeah.
So if somebody wanted to reach out to you and they were looking for a house or somebody to help them with, or they just had questions, you don't charge for it, to answer questions.
Thanks to you, and thanks to you and my friend Mark. If you just Google one word, Mortgage Mack, you'll find me on the first 3 pages of Google.
Man, that's so awesome.
And that's just developed over the last 3 months, I think. So but you can email me at mack@onetrusthomeloans.com.
Okay.
Or
you can tell them.
Yep. You can email me, mack@onetrusthomeloans.com. Or add me to your Facebook or to your LinkedIn account. Just type in Mack Blankenship, and I'll be there. And I would just love to add to my audience and help more people as I move forward and reinvent myself in my new career.
Well, again, man, I want to thank you, Mack.
Thank you
for coming in, telling us your story. Hey, you're going to have to tune in next week, because next week I have a special guest. He's Roberto Blake is his name. He's a beast on YouTube. He has 311,000 followers.
Wow.
And if you know YouTube, that is a big number.
That's a big number.
But there's a lot of people who have a lot bigger number. But how he accomplished that and what he did is more remarkable, because most people that get big on YouTube are these people doing pranks and these crazy, more entertaining.
Yep.
He built this following sheerly on educating people on how to use YouTube, videography, creative stuff. And his create something awesome today.
Wow.
That's his moniker.
That's pretty cool.
And I met him a few years back in San Diego, and he was gracious enough that he's going to be on the show next week, and you have to stay tuned for that. Next Wednesday at 10 a.m. Thanks everybody for coming out and meeting Mack and enjoying our second episode of You're Welcome. Think Like a Marketer show.